Archives of Prasar Bharati presents the timeless treasure of golden era.
Few academics make good creative writers. Fewer still scale great heights, especially when the languages of creative expression and communication are totally divergent. Legends are almost rare, but Vinayak Krishna Gokak was perhaps an exception to the proverbial rule. A brilliant student who topped the merit list in English literature at Oxford, an exceptional teacher whose students made outstanding achievements, a Kannada poet to begin with, who made an instant mark and who subsequently excelled in various forms of creative communication. The 1934 beginning with Kalopasaka was not a flash in the pan. Gokak proved it when on his return from England he published his reflections on the all-encompassing sound and fury of the sea in the 1940 collection Samudra Geetagelu, Sea Poems. All else besides, this alone would have found him a permanent place in modern Kannada literature. But this was followed by 18 other books of romantic verse, culminating with the magnum opus Bharat Sindhu Rashmi, the 35,000-line Mahakavya, which was 7 years in writing, a 5-part 1,200-page novel, Samarasava, Jivana, Harmony is Life or The Agony and the Glory, 4 plays of which Yugantara, End of an Age, caused a stir, 3 travelogues of which 2 relate to sea voyage, 10 books of literary criticism, 2 books of essays, and 3 of philosophical thought. While nothing that Gokak wrote can be set aside, between Samudra Geetagelu and Bharat Sindhu Rashmi appeared Higu, Delight, Navya Kavita Gelu, New Poems, and Davya Prithvi, Heaven and Earth, which won him the Sahitya Academy Award in 1960. Other distinctions like the Padma Shri 1960, honorary degrees of D.Lit from the Universities of Karnataka 1987 and Pacific, California 1969 pale in comparison. The wheel comes full circle with Bharat Sindhu Rashmi, a work of heightened imaginative perception, an epic which won Gokak the land's most coveted literary honor, the Gyanpith Award.
Gokak's first collection of poems, Kalopasaka, came out in 1934, and his epic Bharat Sindhu Rashmi in 1982. So for nearly half a century, he was one of the most significant writers of Kannada literature. In 1938, he started writing a series of poems which were later published under the title Samudra Geetagelu. I think that was one of the most significant contributions any poet made to modern Kannada poetry. Because there, Dr. Gokak not only gave Kannada poetry a new meter, free verse, but also captured in words the power and the awesome glory of the sea. He was on his way to Oxford University and he was sailing. For the first time, he was face to face with the majesty and the power of the sea, and he seems to have been intoxicated. This experience gave modern Kannada poetry a new power. In Samudra Geetagelu, he showed how both vocabulary and meter could be exploited to incarnate a man's deep experience. On his 60th birthday, Dr. Gokak said that the confluence of poet, thinker, and critic was dear to him. And I think that description, poet in the large sense of creative writer, poet, thinker, and critic.
For me, when I was growing up as a boy in the high school, Gokak was a legend. He had gone abroad and he stood first, brought great name for the country, and wrote his great free verse poems, Samudra Geetagelu, the songs from the sea, of the sea. I still remember 2 lines, which gave us some kind of an idea of new poetry. Kodadiru Sharadhige Shatpadiya Dikshayanu. Shatpadi is a meter, a metrical form. Sharadhi is the ocean. Don't give the ocean the Diksha of Shatpadi. So that was a great declaration for new verse.
While talking about my father as a literary man, I cannot help highlighting three important factors. One was the influence which travel had on his literary works. While traveling in a train, he would feel that the train was singing a song. In fact, he felt while traveling between Miraj and Dharwad in a meter gauge train that the train was singing a song, and the song was, "To the mango flower and the jasmine bower, back to the beauty which is the same." When he went to England on a voyage, he produced a collection of poems, the Samudra Geetagalu. It is the first book in free verse in Kannada. When he traveled by air to Tokyo, he saw the earth from a great height. The sight of the earth from the plain stirred his imagination, and this provoked him into writing Dyawa Prithvi, which fetched him the Sahitya Academy Award. Travel apart, the influence of English literature, it cannot be denied. It is the study of English literature which enabled him to write lyrics, sonnets, and also be the father of modernist poetry in Kannada. The philosophy of Sri Aurobindo, with its emphasis on the integral vision of life, also had the impact on his writings. That is seen throughout his works right from 1950 onwards, maybe in different degrees. So far as his contribution to poetry is concerned, well, it all began with a book called Kalopasaka in 1934. It is the story of an artist's life and its fulfillment. This was followed by a collection of lyrics called Payana. It contains one of his most famous lyrics, Ille iru alli hogi malligeyanu taruvenu, ನೇಹಕ್ಕೆಂದು ನಲುಮೆಗೊಂದು ಗುರುತು ನಿರಿಸಿ ಬರುವೆನು. The collection made its impact on Kannada literature. So far as modernist poetry is concerned, well, Samudra Geetagalu is the first important landmark which he published in 1940. When he went on his voyage to England, the dance of the sea inspired him. He saw how unfettered the movement of the sea was, and then he thought that his expression in poetry should be as unfettered as the dance and movement of the sea. I will read out some portions of his translation into English from this poem. May all that is lifeless and outworn be drowned and entombed in water, and in the deepest depths of the heart may all that is new be born. Oh, not to me the iron chains of couplet, triplet, and quadruplet. Oh, not for me the involuting measures. My rhythm will be the myriad dance of the sea, the mid-sea dance in waves on waves and waves. Another landmark was the collection called Navya Kavitegalu in 1950. He presided over the All Karnataka Poets Conference in Bombay, and his collection of poems called Navya Kavitegalu. It is the first collection of modernist poetry in Kannada. Then came Urananabha. Urananabha, the main theme is that of the spider, which symbolizes the incarnation of all evil in the world. Trishankuvina Prajna
Prabhata
1965, it describes the plight of the modern man, which is like that of Trishanku. He wants to move from the sensuous to the intellectual, the imaginative, and finally the intuitive level. His transformation at the intuitive level is described beautifully in this collection.
But my novel, Samarasave Jivana, Life is Harmony, and my epic, Bharata Sindhu Rashmi, these two are outstanding for several reasons. One of the reasons is that I worked on them for a long time. This novel, for example, I started writing it in 1931. I wrote the second part of it in 1944, and later on, 45, 46, I wrote the third part. And then I had no time. I was principal all these years, and work became too heavy. So when I went to Dharwad as principal of Karnataka College, my friend came and took it down. The last part is in English. The first 4 parts are in Kannada. So you may ask why I did this.
Yes, indeed.
But the reason was, this last part deals with the global situation.
I was intimately connected with him in the translation of his magnum opus in prose, his epic novel Samarasave Jivana. In translation, it means harmony is life. This novel consists of about 1200 printed pages, and I have abridged it and edited it. It runs into about 500 pages. It brings out the essential vision of life that has been projected in the novel, though it is an abridged version. It's a very interesting novel, but in my view, the vision of life projected in the novel is magnificent, and it covers such a long span of time. It was started somewhere in the 30s. It was finished in 53 or 54. And a sequel to it was added sometimes later in 75 or 76. The author took 22 years to write that book, and I took some 15 years to translate that. ಮೊಗ್ಗಾವಿಯು ಉತ್ತರ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದಲ್ಲಿಯ ಒಂದು ಊರು. ತಿರುಕಾಚಾರ್ಯರು ಬರೆದ ತಾಲೂಕ ರಾಜ ಸ್ತೋತ್ರದಲ್ಲಿ ಇದರ ಉಲ್ಲೇಖವಿದೆ. ಹುಬ್ಬಳ್ಳಿ ಧಾರವಾಡದಂತೆ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಪಟ್ಟಣವಲ್ಲ, ಹಳ್ಳಿಯೂ ಅಲ್ಲ. ಕಳೆದ ಖಾನೆ ಸುಮಾರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅದರ ಜನಸಂಖ್ಯೆ ಸುಮಾರು 15,000ವಿತ್ತೆನ್ನಬಹುದು. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಒಕ್ಕಲಿಗರೂ ಉಂಟು, ಅಕ್ಕರಿಗರೂ ಉಂಟು. 2 ಪಾಲು ಒಕ್ಕಲುತನವಿದ್ದರೆ ಊರಿನಲ್ಲಿ 1 ಪಾಲು ವ್ಯಾಪಾರ, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಪಾಲು ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಜನೆ. ಕರಣಿಕರು, ಒಕ್ಕಲಿಗರು, ವ್ಯಾಪಾರಸ್ಥರು, ಶಿಕ್ಷಕರು ಇವರೆಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಲಿಯ ಪ್ರಮುಖ ನಾಗರಿಕರು. ಆದರೆ ಸಂಸಾರಕ್ಕೆ ಊರು ಒಳ್ಳೆಯ ಸುಖಕರವಾಗಿತ್ತು. ಊರಿನಿಂದ 8 ಮೈಲು ದಾಟಿದರೆ ತೀರಿತು. ನಿಲ್ಮನೆಯು ಅಲ್ಲಿಯ ಜನರನ್ನು ನಾಗರಿಕತೆಯ ಉಚ್ಚಸ್ಥಿತಿಯ ನೆನಪಿನಿಂದ ಹುರಿದುಂಬಿಸುತ್ತಿತ್ತು. ಪ್ರತಿ ಸೋಮವಾರ ಊರಲ್ಲಿ ಸಂತೆ. ಆಗ ಸುತ್ತಲಿರುವ ಎಲ್ಲ ಹಳ್ಳಿಗಳಿಂದ ಬೆಣ್ಣೆ, ಪಲ್ಲೆಕಾಯಿ ಮೊದಲಾದ ಅರೋಗಣೆಯ ಸಾಮಗ್ರಿಗಳು ಬಹು ಸುಲಭವಾದ ಕ್ರಯಕ್ಕೆ ಸಿಗುತ್ತಿದ್ದವು. ಅಲ್ಲದೆ ತೋಟಪಟ್ಟಿಯ ಊರು ಬೇರೆ. ಈಸಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಪ್ರಶಸ್ತವಾದ ಬಾವಿಗಳು ರಾಮತೀರ್ಥ, ಅಗಸ್ತ್ಯ ತೀರ್ಥಗಳು. ಜಾಗೃತ ಸ್ಥಾನವೆಂದು ಹೆಸರುಗೊಂಡ ಕೇಶವದೇವರ ಗುಡಿಯೊಂದು. ಧನಿಕರು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ತಮ್ಮ ವ್ಯವಹಾರವನ್ನು ಸುಲಭವಾಗಿ ಸಾಗಿಸಬಹುದು. ತೋಟಿಗರು, ಒಕ್ಕಲಿಗರು ಇಂಥ ವ್ಯವಹಾರವನ್ನು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸಿಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತಿದ್ದರು. ಕಾರಣ ಅನೇಕ ದೇಸಾಯಿ ಮನೆತನಗಳು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದು ನೆಲೆಗೊಂಡು ನಿಂತಿದ್ದವು. ದೇಸಾಯರ ಬರವಿನಿಂದ ಮೊಗ್ಗಾವಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸುಪ್ತವಾಗಿದ್ದ ರಸಿಕತೆಗೂ ಕಳೆಯೇರಿತು. ನಾಚು, ಸಂಗೀತ, ವಾದ್ಯ ಒಂದಿಲ್ಲ ಒಂದೆಡೆಗೆ ಇವು ಆ ಊರಿನ ದಿನಚರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದು ಸೇರಿದ್ದವು. ಜನರಲ್ಲಿ ರಸಕಸಿ ಹುಟ್ಟುವಷ್ಟು ಇವರ ರಸಿಕತೆ ಏರಿ ತಂದು ಜನರು ಒಮ್ಮೊಮ್ಮೆ ಆಡಿಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತಿದ್ದರು.
Gokak held important academic and administrative positions during his highly hectic and eventful life. These include Vice Chancellor, Bangalore University, Principal, Karnataka College, Dharwad, Director, Central Institute of English and Foreign Languages, Hyderabad, Director, Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Simla, and President, Central Sahitya Academy, New Delhi. Equally prolific critically and creatively in English, his publications include 3 collections of poems, 6 books of criticism, a biography, a book on Indian culture, 1 on English in India, 3 edited volumes, and the last part of his epic novel Samarasva Jeevana. Of these, Concept of Indian Literature demands special attention because Gokak was a strong believer of oneness of Indian literature. The reality, unity, variety, and continuity of Indian literature fascinated him, and he therefore strived for a course of study in Indian literature at the postgraduate level so that the Indianness of Indian literature could be assimilated properly by the younger generations.
The Indian mind in its sublimated state finds itself in the roots of Indian culture. It goes back to what I term as the Gangotri of the Indian spiritual thoughts. Dr. Gokak's mind, after wandering in the various realms of ancient thoughts as well as modern thoughts, has also gone back to the mysterious realm of Vedic literature, the Vedic thoughts. And what happened subsequently as a result of this has been an amalgamation of all the concepts, ancient and modern, out of which emerged Bharata Sindhu Rashmi. This Bharata Sindhu Rashmi, as a Mahakavya, is an expression of a seer. It is just not an expression of a thinker, or it is just not an expression of a poet. It is an expression which is equal to that of a seer. We can say it is an expression of a philosopher, but by seer or by using a Sanskrit term darshanika, I have put more meaning into it. You see, a philosopher or a thinker is a thinker, and his experience is different from the experience of a darshanika who believes more in his spiritual direct experience. So here Dr. Gokak emerges in his Bharata Sindhu Rashmi as a darshanika or as a seer.
ಭಾರತ ಸಿಂಧು ರಶ್ಮಿಗೆ ನಾವು ಬಂದರೆ ಈ ಮಹಾಕಾವ್ಯವು ಕೇವಲ ವೇದಕಾಲೀನ ಒಂದು ಸಮಾಜದ ದರ್ಶನ ಮಾಡುವುದು ಮಾತ್ರವಲ್ಲ, ವೇದದ ದರ್ಶನವನ್ನೇ ನೀಡುತ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಭಾಷೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಮಂತ್ರಶಕ್ತಿ ಹೇಗಿರುತ್ತದೆ, ಮನುಷ್ಯನ ಬುದ್ಧಿ ಕಲಿಸ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಪ್ರೇರಕ ಶಕ್ತಿಯ ನೆಲೆ ಯಾವುದು, ಮತ್ತು ಈ 2 ದೃಷ್ಟಿಗಳಿಂದ ಒಳಗೊಂಡಿರತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಆ ಇಡೀ ಭರತಖಂಡದ ಒಂದು ವಿಕಾಸವನ್ನು ಆ ಕಾವ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರು ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆ ಕಾವ್ಯದ ತಿರುಳಿನಂತಿರತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಒಂದು ವಾಕ್ಯವನ್ನು ನಾವು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಗಮನಿಸಬಹುದು. ಸುದಾಸ ಆ ಕಾವ್ಯದ ಕೇಂದ್ರ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ. ಆತ ವಿಶ್ವಾಮಿತ್ರರಿಗೆ ಈ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಯನ್ನು ಕೇಳ್ತಾನೆ. ಪರಿಸರವನ್ನೇ ಮೀರುತ್ತಾ ಹೋರಾಟ ಕೀಳುವಿದೆಯ ಪಡೆದಿಲ್ಲ ಮಾನವ ಬುದ್ಧಿ, ಬುದ್ಧಿಗೆ ಬುದ್ಧಿಗಲಿಸಲು ಅಣೆಗೊಂಡಿರುವ ಛಲವೆಲ್ಲಿ. ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಬುದ್ಧಿಗೆ ಬುದ್ಧಿಗಲಿಸ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಒಂದು ಛಲ ಮನುಷ್ಯನಿಗೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ, ಅದು ಗಾಯತ್ರಿ ಸಾರ. ಗೋಕಾಕರಿಗೆ ವೇದದ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಮತ್ತು ಈ ತ್ರಿವಿಕ್ರಮರ ಆಕಾಶಗಂಗೆಯಲ್ಲಿ, ತ್ರಿಶಂಕುನ ಪ್ರಜ್ಞಾಪ್ರಭಾತದಲ್ಲಿ, ಕೊನೆಗೆ ಈ ಭಾರತಸಿಂಧು ರಶ್ಮಿ ಮಹಾಕಾವ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಏಕಪ್ರಕಾರವಾಗಿ ಹರಿದು ಬರುತ್ತಿರತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಸಂದರ್ಭವನ್ನು ಕುರಿತು ನಾನು ಮಾತನಾಡಿದಾಗ ಒಂದು ಮಾತು ಹೇಳಿದರು. ನಾನಾಗಿ ಈ ಕಾವ್ಯವನ್ನು ಬರಿತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಸಾಹಿತ್ಯವನ್ನು ನಾನಾಗಿ ಬರಿತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಒಬ್ಬ ವಿಶ್ವಕವಿ ನನ್ನ ಮೂಲಕ ಪ್ರಕಟವಾಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ ಅನ್ನೋ ಮಾತನ್ನು ಅವರು ಆಡಿದರು. ನಿಜವಾಗಿ ಬೇಂದ್ರೆ ಅವರ ಗೆಳೆಯರ ಗುಂಪಿನ ಆದರ್ಶವೇ ಇದು. ಅವರು ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿಯೂ ಕೂಡ ಸಾಹಿತ್ಯವನ್ನು ಸಾಹಿತ್ಯಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ರಚನೆ ಮಾಡಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಜೀವನಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ಮಾಡಿದರು. ಜೀವನದ ಒಂದು ವಿಕಾಸಕ್ಕೆ ಭಗವಂತ ವಿಶ್ವಕವಿ ರೂಪದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸಾಹಿತ್ಯಗಳ ಮೂಲಕ ಪ್ರಕಟವಾಗ್ತಿರ್ತಾನೆ. ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಬ್ಬ ಸಾಮಾನ್ಯ ಕವಿಯೂ ಕೂಡ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ಪಾತ್ರನಾಗಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನುವ ದರ್ಶನ ಆ ಗೆಳೆಯರ ಗುಂಪಿನಲ್ಲಿತ್ತು. ಗೋಕಾಕರು ಆ ಗುಂಪಿನ ಅತ್ಯದ್ಭುತವಾಗಿರತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಫಲಸ್ವರೂಪರಾಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ.
ಬಂಧಗಳ ಬಂದಿವಾಸ ಬಂದಿದ್ದೇ ಬಂಧುರವಾಗಬಹುದು. ಸಾಕಯ್ಯ ವೃತ್ತಗಳ ಆವರ್ತ ನಿನ್ನ ಮಣಿತವಿರಲಿ ಸಮುದ್ರದ ಕುಣಿತದಂತೆ. ತರಂಗೋತ್ತರಂಗಗಳನ್ನೊಳಗೊಂಡ ನವರಂಗ ವಾರಿದಿಯಂತೆ ವೃತ್ತ ಬಂಧಗಳು ಸಂಧಿಸಿ ಬಂದ ಸಮುದ್ರವಾಗು ಕವಿಯೇ, ಕವಿಗಳ ಸಮುದ್ರಗುಪ್ತನಾಗು.
Professor Gokak was the man who began as an out and out romanticist but moved on to modernism in Kannada literature and came back again to a kind of romanticism. He came out with his Simla Symphony when he was in Simla in 1970-71, which is nothing but romantic poem or romantic poems brought out in the form of a collection. He ended up with his masterpiece, which is of course an epic, again written more or less in the romantic style. So Professor Gokak did not belong to any particular cult, any particular school of thought, but he belongs to all times because he went on changing his own cult, his own method of writing according to his own conviction. He did not believe in pursuing a particular type of writing for the sake of that particular type of writing. He was not interested in fashion, he was not interested in name, he was not interested in fame. He believed whatever he wrote was from out of his own conviction. Professor Gokak, of course, inspired numerous generations of young Kannada writers, young Kannada readers. I remember he would give replies to all the letters that he would receive from even youngsters, people who hardly wrote. Even to those people he would spend time giving them guidance, giving them tips, giving them encouragement. In fact, he was generous in giving compliments to younger writers. This is a very rare trait amongst Kannada writers. In fact, for that particular reason, he was also misunderstood and sometimes wrongly criticized. His only aim was to encourage, to inspire younger writers so that Kannada literature would be enriched by these young promising writers.
Dada Gokak was indeed a seer, undoubtedly a great poet. Dada used to come to Bangalore, and whenever he came to Bangalore, he would visit us, and with him he would bring books and he would recite poems. He was a great promoter of young talent. I must say how he made me write a major paper on Kannada literature to be presented at the Sahitya Sammelan presided over by the great Doyen of Kannada literature, Kuvempu. But for him, I don't think I would have been initiated into Kannada writing at all. When he came home, he not only made us read stories, but he also would recite his poems. One poem impressed me very much.
And it begins like this. Ani Ambariyaka. Does a man need elephants? Does a man need howdahs? Does a man need silken carpets? He doesn't need them. What he needs is just a tambura, the one single instrument, musical instrument, not even the many stringed veena, not the flutes, not the lutes, but just the tambura and the ekatana, that single tune of divine music, divine love, is that gives man the essence of God's love, God's presence. Ani ambaryaka kuli kumbaraga ratna gambaliyaka maniyaka. And I would like to sing it this way. Ani ambaryaka kuli kumbaraga ratnanga baliyaka maniyaka, ratnanga baliyaka maniyaka, Shambho Shankara umbali hakita tamburi sakondu kuniyaka, tamburi sakondu kuniyaka. Ani ambaryaga kuli kumbaraga ratnagambaliyaka maniyaka, ratnagambaliyaka maniyaka, Shambho Shankara umbali hakita tamburi sakondu kuniyaka, tamburi sakondu kuniyaka. ಕಂಬ ಕಂಬವನೊಡೆದು ನರಸಿಂಹ ಬಂದ, ಕಂಬ ಕಂಬವನೊಡೆದು ನರಸಿಂಹ ಬಂದ, ಜಂಬದ ಮಾತ್ಯಕ ಭೂಮ್ಯಾಗ, ಜಂಬದ ಮಾತ್ಯಕ ಭೂಮ್ಯಾಗ, ತಂಬೂರಿಯೊಳಗಿಂದ ಶಂಭೋ ಶಂಕರ ಬಂದ, ತಂಬೂರಿಯೊಳಗಿಂದ ಶಂಭೋ ಶಂಕರ ಬಂದ, ಓಂಕಾರ ಊದಿದ ಕಿವಿಯಾಗ, ಓಂಕಾರ ಊದಿದ ಕಿವಿಯಾಗ, ಓಂಕಾರ ಊದಿ ಅಹಂಕಾರ ಬೂದಿ, ಓಂಕಾರ ಊದಿ ಅಹಂಕಾರ ಬೂದಿ, ಝೇಂಕಾರ ಇಂಬಾಗಿ ನಡೆದಾದ, ಝೇಂಕಾರ ಇಂಬಾಗಿ ನಡೆದಾದ, ತುಂಬಿ ಅಂಬುಜದಾಗ ತುಂಬುವ ತುಂಬರ, ನಾದದ ತಂತಿಯ ಮಿಡದಾದ, ನಾದದ ತಂತಿಯ ಮಿಡಿದಾದ, ಒಂದೇ ತಂತಿಯ ಮೀಟು. This indeed is the principle of oneness, of togetherness. ಒಂದೇ ತಂತಿಯ ಮೀಟು.